I didn't move into that apartment because I loved it. I moved into it because I was broke. I had just turned 22, just graduated community college, and I was working this mediocre warehouse job that paid enough to survive, but not enough to live comfortably. I needed something cheap and close to work. That was the only criteria. The building was old. Not charming old. Just tired old. 3 floors. Beige siding that had seen better decades. The kind of place where the carpet in the hallway is permanently stained and smells faintly like someone tried to cover up mold with lemon cleaner. My unit was on the top floor. 3rd floor, corner apartment. That detail matters. When you walked in, you were immediately in the living room. Small square space. To the right was the kitchen, barely separated, just a half wall dividing it. Straight ahead from the living room was a short hallway. On the left side of that hallway was the bathroom. On the right was a coat closet. And at the very end was my bedroom. The bedroom had this weird feature. In the ceiling, near the corner above the closet, there was a square wooden panel, like a little attic access door. It blended into the ceiling, but you could tell it wasn't original. The paint didn't match perfectly. I asked the landlord about it during the walkthrough. He said, "Old crawlspace above the building, used for wiring and insulation access. Nobody goes up there. It's sealed." He said it casually, like it was nothing. And honestly, I didn't think much of it. The place was cheap. That's all that mattered. The first couple of weeks were fine. Quiet building, mostly older tenants. I worked late shifts sometimes, so I'd come home around midnight or later, heat up something in the microwave, shower, watch YouTube, sleep. But one thing I noticed pretty early on was that I could hear things above me, which makes no sense, because I was on the top floor. At first, I chalked it up to building noises. Expansion, pipes, wind hitting the roof. You know how old places have those random pops and creaks? But these weren't random. They sounded like movement, not heavy footsteps. Not like someone walking normally. More like weight shifting, like someone crawling slowly across wood. The first time it really registered, I was lying in bed scrolling on my phone around 1:30 a.m. and I heard a very deliberate thud right above my bedroom. I froze. Then I heard something drag. Not scrape, not bang. Drag. Like fabric or skin moving across insulation. I stared at the ceiling panel. Nothing moved visually, but the sound had come from directly above that square. I held my breath for a full 20 seconds. Nothing. Then another soft shift. I grabbed my phone and turned off the video I was watching so I could hear better. Silence. And then, as if responding to the quiet, 3 slow, spaced-out knocks, directly above me. Not random settling, not wind. Knock, pause, knock, longer pause, knock. I actually said out loud, "What the hell?" Which was stupid, because right after I spoke, I heard something move quickly, like whatever was up there reacted. I didn't sleep much that night. The next day, I called the landlord. He sounded annoyed before I even finished explaining. "There's no one up there," he said. "It's sealed. Probably raccoons on the roof." I asked him if he could at least check. He said he'd look into it. He never came. The noises didn't happen every night. That's what made it worse. If it was constant, I could blame animals. But it was inconsistent. Sometimes nothing for days. Then suddenly, at 2 a.m., movement. And it was always above my bedroom. Never the living room. Never the kitchen. Just my bedroom. About a month in, I decided to test something. I waited until I heard it again, that dragging, slow shifting sound. Then I grabbed a broom. I stood on my bed and pressed the handle firmly up against the crawlspace panel. The movement stopped instantly, like immediately. That alone made my chest tighten. I pushed harder. "Hello?" I called. Nothing. Then I slammed the broom handle against the panel. Hard. The reaction was immediate. A violent scurry. Rapid, scrambling movement across wood. And then silence. That was not raccoons. Animals don't freeze when you speak and then sprint when you slam something. That felt like someone who knew they'd been detected. I barely slept again. The next morning, I did something I should have done earlier. I inspected the panel closely. Standing on a chair, I looked at the edges. And that's when I noticed something I hadn't before. The paint around the panel's edges was cracked. Not from age, from movement. Tiny fresh fractures in the paint line, like it had been opened recently. I felt sick. I grabbed a screwdriver and tried to pry the panel open myself. It wouldn't budge, which almost made me feel better. Until that night. That night, around 3 a.m., I woke up without knowing why. No noise. Just that feeling. You know the one. When your brain wakes you up before you understand why. I lay there in the dark. And then I heard breathing. Not loud. Not exaggerated. Soft. Above me. Slow inhale. Slow exhale. I stopped breathing myself just to be sure it wasn't echoing from somewhere else. It wasn't. It was directly above my bed. Above that panel. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. I grabbed my phone slowly and turned on the flashlight and aimed it at the Crawlspace door. And that's when I saw it. The panel wasn't fully closed. It was shifted, maybe half an inch down on one side, just enough to create a dark slit. And inside that slit, I saw something move. I don't know if it was fingers, or fabric, or hair, but something shifted back from the opening when the light hit it. I don't remember deciding to move. I just remember suddenly being out of bed, out of my room, grabbing my keys. I didn't even look back. I ran to my car in bare feet and drove to a 24-hour gas station parking lot. I sat there shaking for 40 minutes before calling the police. When they arrived and followed me back to the apartment, they searched the entire place first. Nothing. Then one of the officers got a ladder from his cruiser. He pushed the panel open, and I will never forget his face. Not panic, not shock, just this tight, controlled expression. "Stay back," he said. There were blankets up there, water bottles, food wrappers, and flattened insulation where someone had clearly been lying down. Directly above my bedroom, there was a small flashlight and a phone charger cable. The crawlspace extended across multiple units, meaning someone could access it from another apartment or from outside through the roof. They didn't find the person. They must have slipped out at some point before we got back. But the officer told me something I still think about. He said, if you hadn't noticed the panel shift, they might have eventually come down. I didn't sleep there again. I broke my lease with police documentation. The landlord suddenly became very cooperative after that. To this day, I don't know how long someone was up there. Weeks? Months? Watching me sleep? Listening to my phone calls? Waiting? The worst part isn't the idea that someone was hiding above me. It's that sometimes, even now, years later, when I wake up randomly in the middle of the night, I still have the urge to look at the ceiling and check if the panel is fully closed. This happened when I was 24. I wasn't in a great place financially again, which seems to be a theme in my life, and I had just broken up with my girlfriend of 3 years. We had lived together in a small townhouse, and when we split, neither of us could afford the place alone. So I moved back in with my older cousin temporarily. He lived in a 2-bedroom apartment about 25 minutes away from where I worked. There wasn't space for all my furniture, so I rented a storage unit nearby to keep the bigger stuff, my couch, bed frame, desk, boxes of random things I didn't want to get rid of. The storage facility was one of those outdoor ones. Long rows of metal garage-style doors, gravel ground, security gate with keypad access, cameras mounted high up on poles. It looked secure enough. My unit was toward the back corner of the property. That detail matters. The first few weeks were normal. I'd go there occasionally to grab something or drop something off. It was usually empty when I went, especially at night. I preferred going at night, actually. Less traffic. No awkward small talk. The gate required a personalized code to enter and exit, and every time you punched it in, it logged the time. At least, that's what the sign said. About a month after renting it, I went there around 9:30 p.m. to grab a box of winter clothes. When I got to my unit, something felt off. Not dramatic, just subtle. The lock was on the door exactly how I left it. Same position, same orientation, but the metal door itself looked slightly uneven, like it hadn't been pulled down flush. I told myself I was imagining it. I unlocked it, lifted the door, and immediately felt my stomach drop. Nothing was missing. That was the strange part. But my couch, which I had pushed all the way against the back wall, was about 2 feet forward. At first I thought maybe I had left it like that. Memory can be weird. But then I saw the desk chair. It had been tucked under the desk when I stored it. Now it was turned outward, facing the door, like someone had been sitting in it. I just stood there for a solid 30 seconds. The overhead fluorescent light hummed. The gravel crunched somewhere in the distance. I stepped inside slowly. Everything was technically still there. Boxes untouched. Mattress still wrapped in plastic. TV still in its box. But things had been moved. Subtly, deliberately. I convinced myself I had just forgotten how I arranged it. Locked it back up, left. But I couldn't stop thinking about that chair. 2 days later, I went back during the day this time. Middle of the afternoon. I unlocked the unit again. The couch was pushed back against the wall. The chair was tucked under the desk. Exactly how I originally had it. That's when I knew. Someone had been inside. And someone had rearranged it again. I went straight to the front office. There was a middle-aged woman working the desk. I told her I thought someone had accessed my unit. She looked skeptical, but pulled up the access log for my code. She showed me every time I had entered and exited. All accurate. Then she checked for any forced gate entries. Nothing. No damaged locks reported. No break-ins. She asked if I had given my code to anyone. I hadn't. She told me sometimes people misremember how they arrange things. I didn't argue, but I knew what I saw. I decided to set a test. The next time I went, I brought a small strip of clear tape. After closing the unit, I placed a tiny piece of tape across the top corner of the door, barely visible unless you knew to look for it. If the door was opened, the tape would tear. Then I left. 3 days passed before I went back. I remember my heart was pounding just walking up to it. The tape was gone. Not hanging. Not torn. Gone. I unlocked the unit with shaking hands, lifted the door, and the first thing I noticed was the smell. Not strong, but noticeable, like sweat and something metallic. The couch was pulled forward again. This time, my mattress had been unwrapped, the plastic torn open. It was leaning upright against the wall, like someone had been using it. There were slight indentations in it, like pressure points from knees. I backed out of the unit slowly and let the door slam shut. I didn't even lock it. I went straight to the office and demanded they check cameras. This time, the manager got involved. They pulled footage from the past week. We watched it together in the tiny office. Camera 7 covered my row. The footage wasn't crystal clear, but you could see movement. Cars coming and going. People opening units. Time stamps in the corner. We scrubbed through late nights. And then we saw it. 2:14 a.m. 2 nights prior. A man walked into frame from the far end of the row. He didn't arrive in a car. He just appeared from the darkness between rows. He walked casually, stopped in front of my unit, looked around, and then he opened it. No bolt cutters, no force. He unlocked it with a key. He went inside, and the camera view didn't show the inside, but the door remained slightly open for almost an hour. At 3:08 a.m., he stepped back out, closed it, locked it, and walked the same direction he came. No vehicle, no urgency, just calm. I asked the manager how that was possible. She went pale. She said only tenants had keys to their individual units. Unless maintenance. There was one master key set for emergencies, held in a locked cabinet. She checked. The master key was still there, at least physically. They couldn't confirm if someone had copied it. The police were called. A report was filed. They tried to enhance the footage, but the man wore a hoodie and kept his head angled down. No clear face. The officer asked me something that stuck with me. Is there anything in there someone could want? Money? Drugs? No, just furniture and clothes. That's what made it worse, because that meant he wasn't there to steal. He was there to stay. I ended my rental immediately, but I had to retrieve my stuff, and I wasn't doing that alone. My cousin came with me, and when we opened the unit for the final time, there was something new. On the back wall, written faintly in black marker. On the drywall between 2 studs. 3 words. I live here. My cousin actually stepped back like he'd been physically pushed. We didn't say anything for a few seconds. We just stared. The police came again. Took photos. They dusted for prints. Nothing usable. The handwriting didn't match any known suspects in their database, which honestly didn't surprise me. Whoever this was, they were careful. The officer told me something else that didn't help. He said sometimes homeless individuals hide in storage units long term. They find empty ones, or copy keys, or climb through ceiling panels between units. They live quietly, avoid detection, and move when they feel exposed. But mine wasn't empty. Mine had my stuff in it, which means he chose it. I threw away the mattress. Couldn't keep it. Every time I think about that hour on camera, him inside, in the dark, sitting on my couch, or lying on my mattress, waiting, I feel that same cold tightening in my chest. The facility upgraded their locks after that. New digital ones, new camera angles. I still think about one thing. He didn't drive in, which means he was already there, somewhere on the property, watching, waiting for everyone to leave. And I always wonder, if I hadn't put that piece of tape on the door, how long would he have kept coming back? This happened when I was 27. By that point, I finally had a decent job. Nothing crazy, but stable. I was renting a small one-bedroom house instead of an apartment, which felt like a big upgrade at the time. It wasn't in the best neighborhood, but it wasn't bad either. Just older homes, close together, narrow driveways, chain-link fences. The kind of street where everyone kind of minds their business. The house itself was small, but laid out well. When you walked in the front door, you stepped into the living room. Straight ahead was a short hallway. On the right side of that hallway was the bathroom. On the left was the bedroom. At the end of the hall was the kitchen, which had a back door leading to a tiny fenced yard. There were only two exterior doors, front and back. Both had deadbolts, and I was obsessive about locking them, because this house had something apartments didn't. Accessibility. Ground-level windows, backyard gate. Easy entry points. Now, this house also came with something else. A lockbox mounted near the front door. You know those little realtor boxes with a combination code? The landlord kept a spare key in there in case of emergencies. I asked him about it when I moved in. He said, "Only I have the code. It's just in case you lock yourself out or there's a maintenance issue." I didn't love that, but I also didn't think much of it. That was mistake number one. The first weird thing happened about 2 months in. I came home from work around 6:30 p.m., unlocked the front door, walked in, and immediately noticed the air felt different. That sounds stupid, but if you live alone, you know what I mean. Your place has a baseline, a stillness. This felt disturbed. I stepped into the living room and noticed my couch blanket was folded. I never fold that blanket, ever. I leave it bunched up in the corner, always. I just stared at it. Then I checked the kitchen. Nothing out of place. Bathroom, normal. Bedroom, bed looked normal. Closet closed. I stood there trying to rationalize it. Maybe I folded it that morning. Maybe I was trying to be productive. Memory is unreliable. I let it go. 2 weeks later, it happened again. This time, it was the bathroom mirror. I had left a small toothpaste smudge in the corner of it that morning. I remember seeing it and thinking I'd clean it later. When I got home, it was gone. The mirror was spotless. I live alone. There was no one else with a key, except the lockbox. That night, I checked it. Still locked. Still hanging on the hook. Nothing looked tampered with. I told myself I was being paranoid. Until the night, I came home early. I had planned to work late, but got cut loose because the system went down. I didn't tell anyone. I just drove home around 3 p.m. As I pulled into my driveway, I saw something that made my stomach drop. The front door was closed, but it wasn't latched. It was slightly ajar, like someone had pulled it shut, but not fully. I sat in my car for a full minute, trying to decide if I was misremembering. I always check the handle before leaving. Always. I walked up slowly, pushed the door open, and I immediately heard something. A shuffle from inside. Not loud, not dramatic, but movement. From the hallway. I didn't yell. I didn't announce myself. I just backed up slowly out of the doorway. And as I did, I heard the back door slam. Hard. I ran around the side of the house to the backyard gate. It was swinging open, but whoever it was already gone. I called the police immediately. They searched the house. Nothing stolen. No forced entry. No broken windows. deadbolts intact. The officer asked if anyone else had a key. I mentioned the lockbox. They inspected it. No visible damage. But here's what I didn't realize until later. You don't need to break a lockbox to use it. You just need the code. I called my landlord furious. He swore he hadn't entered the house. Swore he hadn't given the code to anyone. Said maybe I left the door unlocked, which made me even angrier. After that, I changed the interior doorknobs myself. Not the deadbolts, I wasn't allowed to. But I added a chain lock to the inside of both doors. Something that couldn't be accessed from outside, even with a key. For a few weeks, nothing happened. I started to calm down. And then came the night that made everything real. It was around 1 a.m. I was asleep in bed. Pitch dark room. Phone on the nightstand. And I woke up to a sound I can still replay perfectly. The soft metallic click of a key entering a lock. Not the bedroom door. The front door. I sat upright instantly. Heart racing. And then I heard it. The deadbolt turning. Slowly. But it didn't fully rotate. Because I had the chain latch on. There was a soft resistance. Then silence. Then a second attempt. Key turning again. Testing it. The chain rattled lightly. Whoever it was paused. And then I heard something that made my blood run cold. A whisper. Not loud enough to make out words. Just the faintest murmur. Right outside the door. Like someone confused. Or frustrated. I grabbed my phone and called 911 without turning on any lights. As soon as I started speaking quietly to the dispatcher, the key slid out. Footsteps moved away from the door. Then I heard something metal hit the siding of the house. The lockbox. The police arrived fast. This time, they found something. The lockbox was open, hanging by its hinge. The spare key was gone. The officer asked the landlord to come immediately. When he arrived, he looked genuinely shaken. He insisted he never gave out the code. But when the officer asked how complex it was, he admitted something stupid. It was the house number. 4 digits. Easy guess. Anyone who walked by enough times could have figured it out. They canvassed neighbors. One older woman 2 houses down mentioned seeing a younger guy walking up to my porch a few times over the past month. She assumed it was a friend. The police couldn't prove who it was. No clear camera footage. No prints on the lockbox. Nothing. I moved out within 2 weeks. Broke the lease with police documentation again. The landlord changed all the locks and removed the lockbox entirely after that. But here's the part that sticks with me. A few days after the attempted entry, I checked my bedroom window one last time before leaving the house for good. And on the outside of the glass, very faint, barely visible unless the light hit it right, were fingerprints, right at face level, like someone had been standing there, watching. And a realization that someone had probably been testing that key for weeks, coming in when I was gone, cleaning small things, moving small items, making sure I wouldn't notice, until they finally tried it while I was home. That's the part that still gets me. Not the key turning, not the whisper, but the idea that I might have been asleep in that house many nights, while someone stood outside, trying the code, over and over and over.